Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of Ranking the Albums. Today we have in the co-captain's chair everybody from Canada this morning, except for myself, Armando Venditti, Martin Popoff, and Rick LaBonte. Good morning, gentlemen. How are you today?
Oh, doing great, doing great. Glad to see the Canadian contingent out.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And you know, we have some fun stuff to talk about today, but before we do want to pass on some sad information for those who haven't heard. So, Taylor Hawkins from the Foo Fighters, the great drummer from the Foo Fighters, passed away sometime during the evening down while the band was playing in South America, 50 years old. That's way too young to go. We don't have all the specifics of what actually happened yet, and there's lots of rumors flying around, but I think we can all agree 50 is way too young for such a well-respected and well-loved musician who generally liked by everybody. And, we constantly lament a lot of our rock stars who are in their 70s and 80s and 60s who were losing. And then when you hear someone who's 50, that's hits home, because I think basically younger than all of us, right? So that's kind of a shame. So, and any quick thoughts on this, guys?
He just, I have one of his solo projects that he did called The Birds of Satan, and it's a really good album. He's really talented, multi-instrumentalist, as I was saying before we went on. Just very bright spirit, very energetic. That's all.
Yeah, he's very recognizable as a star too. I mean, for not too many people always know the drummer of the band, and he got well known, and he seemed to be have played with a lot of great talent over the years, and got the honor with Jimmy Page, John Paul Jones, and Paul McCartney. I mean, the list goes on, and so for the short time that he had been with us, given his music and his talent. He did utilize his time wisely to some degree. I mean, he did accomplish a lot, seen a lot of the world. It's just a shame that he's gone so soon, 50. That's sad.
Yeah, we had him in the Rush movie, right?
Yes.
Talking about Neil Peart, and he was so enthusiastic, and he just seemed so full of life and everything. And I posted on my Facebook. I mean, I remember watching this just a couple weeks ago, but when he goes on and does Somebody to Love, goes up front, he's the front man, sings that, and someone made a comment. I thought it was a pretty neat comment that said, it's interesting with the Foo Fighters, the best singer in the band is the drummer, and the best drummer in the band is the singer, and everybody's okay with that. So it's kind of cool. It's too bad. 50. I think there's a lot of shock out there because we're not used to these guys going at 50. So.
Yeah. It's the good thing that you mentioned that, because I actually seen when they honored Led Zeppelin at the Kennedy award or whatever they do for Led Zeppelin. He sang rock and roll, and Dave played the drums for that tune. So that was a great example. But I mean, you got to be a high profile person just to be able to give a tribute to Led Zeppelin like that. Among all the great people that were there that day.
Yeah, and I think a real testament to him as well as the band. I think Foo Fighters is not really a band we talk about here on Sea of Tranquility, but you are seeing quotes and statements from all walks of life this morning. People outside of the music industry, actors and actresses, and which just goes to show you the true popularity of this band, and they kind of transcend all genres. And it kind of goes against something that I've been saying for a long time. It's like, we really haven't done a good job of producing true rock stars in recent memory. However, this band and these guys perfectly fit into that category. And as you can see by the outpouring of love for Mr. Hawkins, who left us, he was definitely one of them. So rest in peace. Another one gone way too soon. With all that being said, let's move into the topic at hand. Today, we're going to talk about a band that I think the four of us probably wishes were big rock stars like the guys in the Foo Fighters, because I think they deserve it. The Teaparty, exactly. A band that we've talked about quite a bit in recent months, and we wanted to do a ranking show, and we finally got down to it. This is mainly a trio, and have released They've got 9 albums, however, 8 like official albums, because they've got that very, very first album that they did, which was more like a demo. And then there you go, there it is right there. And then they re-recorded a bunch of that stuff for their second album, which is their first official release of an album. So what we're going to do is we're going to rank the 8 official releases, and maybe at the end, if we want to talk about that demo debut, which has been reissued, I think last year, I think it came out. So we got 8 of them. We're going to start from number 8 and move our way back. And I will just say before we even start, and again, this is just my opinion, I don't think there is an album in this catalog that is less than a 4 out of 5 star rating for me. I found this really hard.
Yes.
There's such quality, and I'm new to this band. You 3 have been listening to them for quite a long time. I've only been listening to the Tea Party over the last year. I'm amazed at how really good this band is and how great these albums are, and really different, other than the obvious influences that I'm sure we'll talk about. So we're going to go Armando, Martin, Rick, and myself, and we'll go round and round and round till we get to number 1. So Armando, what do you got for number 8?
Well, before we start, I'd like to say the subtitle of the show is more on that later.
Yes, I'm sure.
This was a difficult list to put together. Sorry, start again. My number 8 is Splendor Solace, or Splendor Solace. Major label debut from '93, came out on, they were signed to EMI from the very beginning and came out on EMI and Chrysalis in the UK and the US. Came out in July of '93. I heard of them in September of '93. And what can I say about this album? Quite a bit, actually. The lead-off track was the River, a lead-off single that I heard. And I remember sitting there in my mom's living room with my Zeppelin box set. I've told Pete this story before. I was listening to my Zeppelin box set, had my headphones on, looked at the TV, and this video came on with all these psychedelic colors and purples and whatever, and there was a snake swirling on a vine, on a tree limb. Sorry, and I pulled off my headphones and I heard this guitar, this just swirling guitar, like snaking into the coming in on the intro, and I was just like, what the hell is this? And I'm listening to it, and it was just so unique, so different from what I was hearing on the Canadian music scene at that point. But yeah, that was, and that was the track, The River. Big beefy drums, like meaty drums on that track. Fantastic. The one thing about Jeff Martin is he's always had a good guitar tone on every album, every song. And yeah, that's what introduced me to the Tea Party. The other singles on the album are "Save Me" and "A Certain Slant of Light." In terms of the album overall, it throws back to like the Zeppelin times, like Zeppelin and psychedelic, 60s, late 60s, I'd say. It's a good album. Is it one of the best for a major label debut? No. They hadn't found their sound yet. They hadn't achieved, it's their first, major label debut, so they hadn't achieved their pinnacle yet, of course. So, but yeah, it's my number 8.
Cool.
So you have to start somewhere. So
okay,
start somewhere. Yeah, exactly.
So so yeah, these guys are from Windsor. This is the first great tea band from Windsor, Teas. This is a very heavy album from 1976, and that's their second one. But Tea Party is also from Windsor, and I went with Splendor Solace as well. I remember when this first came out, it got all over radio here, classic rock radio in Toronto, and I was not on board with the Tea Party for the first year and a half kind of thing. I was kind of disgusted by the whole derivativeness of it. I was thinking this is stupid. They're Canadian. They got the Doors guy, you know, and he looks like Jim Morrison. He sounds like Jim Morrison on top of Led Zeppelin. It just seemed like a big gimmick to me when this first came out, and it was quite hyped. When it came out as well, because, you know, Canadian labels will hype their own bands. And so a bunch of things kind of rubbed me the wrong way about it. And I am one of these people who is a little bit, you know, down on bands from my own country until I, you know, Tragically Hip, I have a very conflicted relationship with as well. So when this first came out, I just was not really on board. I considered it still a little bit gimmicky, and you know, grunge was happening. I was into heavier stuff like grunge. It came out at kind of a weird time, and it was all over radio. And so I'm just not buying the Tea Party yet. I mean, I love the Tea Party now. And we'll obviously get to that, more on that later, Armando. But no, I had to rate it at the bottom because I just felt gimmicky. That's what I felt about it. It just felt gimmicky.
This is going to be interesting because I think because I'm so new to this band, you know, Martin, we often talk about you had to be there type of thing. That's hasn't happened with me. So I think my take on this catalog is going to be really different than the three of you, which is cool. Right?
Yes, and I think I'm going to be different than the three of you too, because I live in Windsor. They're my whole time heroes. Not only that I've seen them over a dozen times in concert, I got tickets to go to see them in Sarnia, Ontario in June. But I actually got to play with these guys. I joined an after party concert they did for a benefit with Jeff Burrows, who's a friend of mine who played on both of my solo records, says, hey, would you bring your harmonica? We're going to play some covers for the audience that didn't see us, you know, the concert that we did. We're not going to repeat it. We're going to do all kinds of different things. So I got up and played Roadhouse Blues with them, and it was great. These guys are my heroes, and not only that, I watched them before they even put this out. There was a local club downtown in Windsor. It was a time when alternative music was coming out in a big way, and everybody wanted their own identity, and it wasn't about covering music anymore. It's about having your own identity. And they played at a place called Coach and Horses and the Loop. It's an upstairs club. At one time, the way that people talk, I thought the band was called The Loop. Did you check out The Loop? And it was like, are you checking out this band? And until I went there, I find out the name was Tea Party. And these are a power trio that their personalities, they should be rock stars, as you said. I mean, Jeff Martin is a bona fide rock star in his personality. He has one of those things where you're born with the it factor. You know, so when I go on stage, I have a certain persona I have to deliver to be confident, to be the, you know, the Rick Jagger or the Robert Plant or Walter Dolce swinging my mic or moving around and stuff. You have to have a certain personality. But with him, he's like that 24/7. He's just the coolest dude ever. Like when you watch him engage the audience and that, he puts everybody in a trance because he's just so cool. He commands respect. And then you have Jeff Burrows, a different rock star. He's your everyday people, easygoing, very much like Taylor. You know, the guy that would take pictures with everybody, engage with everybody. And he's one of the people that didn't leave our community. He actually stayed here, and I'm telling you guys, he's one of the biggest heart in the community. He could run for mayor because of all the charity work he does. It's almost a full-time job. This year, he's doing the 16th year of doing a drum marathon for 24 hours where he invites local acts like myself to perform with them. And he, you know, drinking an energy drink, playing 24 hours to raise money for 4, 5, 6 charities. And he raised thousands of dollars. So he's just a wonderful guy. Then you got Stuart. He's like a Jonesy from John Paul Jones, because he can play the keyboard, the bass, the mandolin. He's just a multi-instrumentalist. But put those three together, they look like rock stars. And every decade, they should have been famous already. So I have a different opinion because of that first album, because it was groundbreaking for us. And I'm a Zepp head. I love the Doors, and I love that. And everybody knows that that's in their DNA because it's like, you know, Pete had mentioned that he recognized some of my influence by listening to my album, whether it's the Beatles or Robert Plant or Uriah Heep and that. And I guess if you spend that much hours studying the tuning, for example, all the strange tuning Jimmy Page have, like the Dagad tuning. You know, Page did it to about 3 or 4 songs. They did almost in every album. They carried that, a little further. And I think if you train all those hours of listening to it, it becomes part of you. It's like, if you're a black belt karate guy, it took you many years to learn that technique, but today it's automatic reflex. You don't think about, the green belt training, you just take it all in. That's what these guys did. They studied classic rock, they studied the trend that was going on, and they put that into their music. But in spite of the grunge scene, they still had their own idea where they want to take their music. So my first one is kind of hard to pick. Like you guys said, I find some of these albums are equally a par. But I'm gonna go with this one because it was by this period in the middle of their career. This album came out, it wasn't anything new for the Tea Party. It wasn't groundbreaking. It's just a Tea Party album. It's a great record. And that's the Inner Stone Mantras album. I think that was a great record, but it's everything that Tea Party does. And all those previous records, to me, it kind of sums up their career up to that point. And so what I like is that every album was bringing something different a little bit in the table, but here is just a summary of what they did up to that date, which is a fantastic record. I love the way the album opened up in its own. They have everything that you want, the ballad, the Mid-Eastern stuff, some of the, they dabbled a little bit on the industrial edge on the third record, they throw that in here. So they're kind of pretty much a summary of what they've been doing up to this point. And so it wasn't, new for me as a new listener from following, but I love the album just as equal. I have to rank it somewhere, and it has to go somewhere, and that's where it's at. But let me tell you, the Tea Party is really special in our community because of what they've done. But they're actually more famous in Australia. They're actually famous in some west part of Canada. And so it's interesting that they didn't break in the United States as I wish they did, but they are recognized around the world.
Cool. Yeah, it is kind of strange that they're pretty much unknown here in the States. But that's music, right? All right. So, yeah, I mean, like Rick said, these albums have to go somewhere. And for me, I really struggle with the bottom half because I have my clear favorites here, but the others I like all equally. I'm like, God, which one sits at the bottom? So just because this album is sitting at the bottom doesn't mean it sucks. I think it's really, really good. I'm going to go with 1999's Triptych. So this kind of follows similar vibes to Transmission, which came before, but it's not quite as dark as that album. It's not quite as reliant on those heavy industrial elements, but it still has enough of them. There's some great songs on here. Chimera is big and vibrant and melodic. It's got nice use of piano, electronics, big drums, big guitars. I mean, Armando mentioned that before. The drum sounds on these albums are huge. I really like Jeff's vocals, and the song reminds me a little bit of Alter Bridge in a weird way, but not. The Halcyon Days, absolutely terrific. I love those Led Zeppelin meets Middle Eastern flavors, which is all over their albums, and I think is really, really cool. What else? Touch is good. Love the Doors style vocals. Yeah, it's funny because as I was kind of going over these albums over the last week, yeah, he's got that Jim Morrison thing going on, but I detect a little Chris Cornell in spots, which is kind of neat. But he's got that presence. I think combine the two of them, right? I mean, this guy is a rock star. This guy is an absolute stud. I love the psychedelic pop of Underground. What a great song. And I love when they do that sort of thing. These Living Arms, killer vocals, Taking Me Away, big soaring hooks. I love the big heavy rock, Great Big Lie, which to me is, if I were to do like a top 10 songs of this band, I think The Great Big Lie would be in that list. Just really, really killer song. Just huge guitars, booming drums all over the place. I really like it a lot. Something's got to be at number 8, so that's going to be there for me, but it's quite good. Back to Armando.
Agreed.
Yeah, just to sort of back up what you said, this listing, it doesn't mean, and just because an album is at the bottom of the list does not mean that it's a subpar album. It's just that we're compiling a list, and they got to go somewhere. I mean, it's but what I also did was I compiled it as to the one I go back to the most, so, and whatever. So, moving on, ladies and gentlemen. The number 7 for me is Ocean at the End from 2014. Thank you, Pete, with the prop. He is fantastic for that.
With the hype sticker still intact.
I see.
That is a rarity, huh?
What happened?
Well, because it's like a digipack. If you're trying to take the hype sticker off, it might rip. So I'm like, I tend to leave those be. But you very rarely see that, though.
Yeah. Yep. There you go. A very minimal packaging for the album, like for the CD. It was released in 2014. Released in Canada through Anthem Entertainment, which management company of Rush, also Anthem Records, like the same company that signed Rush. Fantastic return after 10 years. The one before this was Seven Circles. I get more on that later. And it's a more of a return of it's a very album. You have the ballad "Waters on Fire," which was the first single released to radio. When they were doing the press for the album for the single, the people were saying, or journalists were asking, especially in Australia, is this indicative of what the album is going to be like? And Jeff Ryan's like, oh no, don't even think that, not even the slightest, right? But it's a fantastic ballad. It's it's melodic, it's memorable. The bloody, I should have kept the bloody. I can't read now. I'm blank. The title, really.
Get that flashlight out, Armando.
Exactly. I got it over there. I can't go get it though. The title track is an 8-minute opus featuring, and this is where the prog element comes in, featuring Ian Anderson from Jethro Tull on flute on the intro. The Latin influenced Brazil is another highlight for me. And it's just after 10 years of being away, it's a fantastic, for me, a fantastic return to form.
Great.
Number 7.
Awesome.
Okay, my number 7 is Triptych or Triptych. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. And I hate how you spell it because it's got a capital TRIP and then small, and even on the cover it's in little brackets. Annoying, but I had to put this one here.
For you.
Yeah, I find this one. Again, I agree. Everything's over a 4 out of 5 with this band. I mean, it's such a great band, but I had to put this one here because it's got the biggest preponderance, I think, of the electronica element that they dabbled with in those middle years. I find it to be possibly the mellowest of them. It had a huge hit with Heaven Coming Down on it.
Number one.
Which is a great song. Yeah, number 1. This went double platinum in Canada. I think it's got the preponderance or the highest quantity of kind of like the the dated now treated vocals where you put some distortion on the vocal. So yeah, pretty mellow overall. I love Touch, Slight Attack, Chimera definitely as well is a favorite on here. Halcyon Days is a good mellow one. But yeah, you got to put them somewhere. And this one just has that slight higher element of the things that maybe rub me a little bit the wrong way, kind of more or less all in one place, more than some I have higher up the list.
Rick.
Yes, I'm going the same way. And I got this signed as well, Martin. Actually, the only last 2 records I don't have signed at all from the band. But this record, I love this record. I mean, it's fantastic. This is one of those bands, again, you got to listen from the beginning of the album right to the end. It's an experience. And it suits a day like today, when the weather is a little bit, not the sunshine, you're just feeling the melancholy kind of thing. I love this record. The number 1 song for Canada. And this is one of their several times since they launched the album that we're counting, they've been nominated for a Juno Award, and that's in Canada. It's like a big music thing, right? And they were nominated for this album, the best hard rock album. They didn't get it, but it like Martin said, it did go double platinum. It did sell well, and but there's a lot of great gems on here, and I like the ones that you mentioned. Touch. I like the great Big Lie. Heaven coming down. Maybe a softie, but a great one. I love it. I get emotional about it. All these tunes are very good. The Messenger, Taking Me Away. I hear that chorus. I just got to look at the title, and that chorus takes me away. These Living Arms, like, yes, Jim Morrison's vocal vibe. I also hear some of that early Elvis voice, the 70s powerful when he wanted to get like almost operatic. I also hear Scott from STP, Stone Temple Pilot, and some of those, the way he give it a little bit of raspiness into it, his voice in some of these albums. So I think he really came on his own with this album of making that his voice being the most attention, besides just coming out all these great guitar stuff like he did in the previous record. Here is about a singing album for me. That's why it was all about drama and dynamics. And yes, it's a little more on the mellow side, but it's got more heart from a vocal point of view. It's fantastic, and I love it. So yeah, it got to go somewhere. But this is a fantastic album, and it didn't go unnoticed in Canada.
Cool. Nice.
And Martin, Rick just reminded me, boy, epic fail on our part. Even though it's Saturday morning and not Friday morning, we didn't do a weather report today.
I know. Well, Rick just did it for us. So.
Yeah. Here in New York, it's gray and bleak as well. So yeah, it's not a great day here either. So
we got snow this morning. I was like so happy. I was watching.
Really? Oh, geez, I've had enough of that. Yeah.
We've had enough snow.
No more snow.
It snowed last night. We're done. We're finished.
Yeah, I'm ready for spring, guys. I don't know.
Me too.
My number 7, 1997's Transmission. Now, I will say normally, I don't like this sort of thing. So this is their, to me anyway, this is their big experimental album. Like the first time they're really heavily getting into this whole like industrial loops and sequencers and samples and dubstep and techno elements flying all over the place. I normally don't care for stuff like this. However, in the hands of this band, this really kind of works because they mix it with that like heavy blues rock, the Led Zeppelin thing, the psych, the Middle Eastern elements. So it's like this big melting pot of shit that like shouldn't work, and it really does for me. Temptation, terrific. Love the big huge drums. I'm going to keep getting back to that on every album because man, this guy just so cool. Big guitarist, great chorus. Army Ants is angry. It rocks really hard. You got that majestic psychopomp. Gyroscope is, again, got that Middle Eastern meets Zeppelin thing. It's big and heavy. Alarum has got nice atmosphere to it. It's kind of psychedelic. These guys do like that psychedelic pop thing really cool as well.
Yes.
Title track is big and heavy and crushing. They've got Mellotron all over the place on a lot of these albums, which is pretty neat. Babylon, again, brings kind of like those techno and dubstep elements, but I like it and it makes it really heavy, so I don't really mind it. Pulse is another great song. It's almost kind of doomy, big riffs. Mellotron galore. Emerald is a great song. Aftermath is great. I really like this a lot. Like I said, I'm not normally into this kind of industrial type thing, noisy, and it's a very noisy album, but coupled with his vocals, which have a lot of effects on it at times, but I don't mind it. The big riffs, the big drums. I think this is great. It's got to go somewhere. I just like others better, but this is fantastic. And I remember the first time I started listening to this album, I'm like, oh, I'm probably not going to like this. And then as I got through it, I'm like, yeah, this is pretty damn good, actually. And I just got over my little nonsense with techno stuff and industrial stuff. So yeah, good stuff. Number 7.
Yeah, I was worried when I'm on real time when they came up with this record, and I was like, that was 97 or 27 years old, and I was thinking, I hope they don't go too further down this rabbit hole, because I like where it was. I like the album, but I was nervous because I wasn't an industrial listener that much. Especially when I was keen of what they were doing up to the previous album. But yeah, you're right. They get away with it, though. They do.
Yeah, and what's a real shame, we've already talked about it, but this band basically unknowns here in the States. Considering when that album came out and what was popular in music here at the time, that should have been enormous here. It's like, it's just amazing how this band just passed by so many like younger people here, or rock fans in general in the States, when, I mean, these guys were very current and very relevant. And I don't know, just one of those weird what ifs, right, in music history. It's very strange.
Just a little footnote. They were asked in an interview, why do you think that Transmission wasn't a big hit? And because at the time they were signed to Atlantic in the US. And Stuart Chetwood said, well, they released a Stone Temple Pilots album on the same day. So when that happens, when you're an unknown, new signing act, you're going to fail. So he goes, it's Atlantic's fault, not our fault. It's their fault. Like, they
did reach number 3 in Canada, and they did get a double platinum. So it did good business here. It's just a shame
it was
over.
It was huge here. It was huge. But moving on, my number 6 is 7 Circles from 2004. Thank you very much. He is fantastic with the props.
It's my middle name, although I think Jamie Laszlo has me beat on that, but
the king of props.
I do my best.
No one can beat Jamie. I mean, we won't even go there. It was released in 2004, three years after the Interzone Mantras were released. Again, on EMI, it was produced by Jeff Martin, Gavin Brown, and I think 2 of the tracks were produced with Bob Rock. I didn't even know this album was coming out. Like, it was announced on Much Music here in Canada, and the second it was announced, like after the commercial, like I called the local record store. I was like, oh, we don't know yet. Well, like, can check your database. Like, it's coming out. Check your system. So it's a good album. I read somewhere that the band really, after it came out, really weren't too happy with the pop route they were going on the album. Like, it came out more poppy than what they thought that they wanted. They went to Hawaii to work on some stuff with Bob Rock that came out on the album, which I like. But lead off single was Writings on the Wall. And I think another track, Oceans, was released as a single. But for me, more notable tracks on the album are Writings on the Wall, Empty Glass, which is an ode to David Bowie. Sorry, The Watcher is another track which they worked with Bob Rock on that one, actually. And Wishing You Would Stay, which they did with Holly McNarlin, which is another Canadian artist. It was like point counterpoint on that track. And for me, it's that track for me is an emotional track because it reminds me of my sister, when she was gone. It was only 2 years after she was killed. So it still tugs on my heartstrings, right? So, but it's a great album. And I was surprised about a year after that they had announced that they were splitting. I thought, oh no, like, why? Like, you're so good, But that's my number 6.
Great album. More on that later, right? Hey, Martin.
More on that later, folks. We really need to get a T-shirt done up.
I know, right? Or at least the sign, right? More on that later. Jamie, where are you? We need that little sign on a stick thing you always do so well.
Like that applause sign that you see in audience, like in the studios. Just flash that before we start.
All right, my number 6, I'm going to go with Blood Moon Rising, the most recent one. I mean, I love this album, but I also find it to be one where there's possibly a little bit too much separation of the influences across it. There's the Zeppelin acoustic, there's the heavy Zeppelin, there's the funky Zeppelin. There's a little bit there's not as much of the visionary Tea Party. What they're adding to it that I feel in the middle albums enough. And it's, I guess So Careless is probably my favorite one on it. I'm not crazy about Sun Shower on this one. I like Summertime, which is really kind of cool. It's a rare happy song for them in a certain way, right? It's kind of an up-tempo poppy one. The Beautiful, I really, really like. It reminds me of the Australian band, The Church, who I worship. I love The Church to death. That one reminds me of The Church. There's a lot of acoustic stuff on here as well. But yeah, I find it a little bit, it's got a little bit of that Splendor Solace to me of it. And I'm more excited when there's this, where there's this kind of middle ground that links everything together. That is the Tea Party being truly visionary. So to me, this one's a little bit more second guessing Tea Party. So that's why I have it somewhat lower on the list.
Okay. So my next one will be Transmission. Once again, signed by the boys. I love this record, and same song that Pete mentioned, so I won't kill time and repeat them all, but I love that. And like everything you said about all the album, the drumming is fantastic, and some of it just being the idea that you keep the timing and music are layering on top of this rhythm is just fantastic. And Jeff Burrows is fun to watch on stage. He's one of those drummers that, being that there was only 3 guys to look at, as it is, Jeff will keep you in a trance because he has that hypnotic quality about him. But watching Jeff Burrows at work is so fun. It's like watching Mike Portnoy or Russell Gilbert or back in the day, Keith Moon and John Bottom. They're a concert of their own. Just watching them go all night, it's an amazing experience. And I relive this stuff every time I listen to this album. And Jeff also sings the backup harmony. So every time you hear Temptation, you know that Jeff behind the scene, I hear it, right? And so it's great. Great album. Like I said, I like it. I thought they were experimental, but I didn't want to lose them either. I didn't want them to lose the retro Zeppelin vibe thing, because that's what got me turned on. But no, they didn't. They just kept, what we learned later. But this was a great album. But at that time, I thought, okay, is this where they're gonna change, or will they still keep, what I like, that blueprint that I like about them. But anyway, great record. And this album, like I said, would double a platinum and another nomination for the Juno Award, but didn't happen. Perhaps if they did get these Juno Awards for everyone they were nominated, they would have made a big splash in the US, I think. But anyway.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good analysis. Yeah.
My number 6, the comeback album, The Ocean at the End from 2014. I like this a lot, and I do want to show this because this photograph is just like, these guys look like freaking rock stars. Look at that. Come on. Mm-hmm. They look just badass, this band. They totally do. There's some great songs on here. I love the LOC, whatever the hell it stands for. Great song.
Control, I believe.
The Black Sea. Big riffs. Cypher is kind of mysterious, has those kind of like Led Zeppelin things, the Middle Eastern things going on, which is their trademark. The lovely vocal harmonies on Black Roses. Armando mentioned it too. Brazil just completely kicks ass and has, I think, some of the biggest and best guitar riffs on the album. The 11th Hour, it's got that Zeppelin vibe. Submission, it's got tons of groove. Waters on Fire has this real cool, kind of cool, dreamy psychedelic thing going on. And I gotta say, his guitar solo in The Ocean at the End is enormous. And I felt like I was listening to Jimmy Page, like some unearthed Jimmy Page recording from like 1971. I'm like, holy cow. Great album, great comeback. I almost feel like I should rank it higher, but like I said, it's got to go somewhere. And I think I get just a little bit more mileage out of some of the other ones. But yeah, that's my number 6 right there.
Nice.
Great. I love that album. Love that first song. I the LOC, and I had to think, what is he saying? In the line of control. So anybody didn't know what that title. And but I love that song.
Really good. Their opening tracks on almost all their albums are really, really great.
That's true.
Yeah, which I think it's an art, right? We talk about that a lot here on the channel across many bands and albums. You have a great song to lead off the album, that usually is that's the right way to do it, and usually foreshadows what's to come. But these guys, man, every album, boom, they just pull you right in from the get-go. So good stuff.
Yes, indeed.
Oh, footnote. Jeff Martin was saying in an interview that his father complained to him that you haven't done a lot of guitar solos, like good beefy lengthy guitar solos on your stuff for the longest time. So he goes, you need to do, because I think his father's a musician as well. But he says, so you've got to do some, give me something to work with here. So when they did the track portion at the end, he goes, okay, I'm going to take this and I'm going to, because the guitar solo is like a minute 30, 2 minutes or something. Like, it's a good.
Yeah, it's pretty long. And you are right. There aren't a lot of really lengthy ones. They're brief to the point. They're great. But yeah, he doesn't really do like a page or a blackboard type thing.
Basically, like, you got to give me something that I can work with here, that I can brag to my friends about. That's my son doing that, right?
That's my boy.
Yeah, that's my boy, right?
Yeah. But when you see him live, he does vamp a little bit live.
I would assume, yeah. Yes. Cool.
Yeah, they do a lot of extended jams, and like, I've never seen them live. I wanted to, but I've never been able to see them live, and I don't think Bob would love it, but and more on that later. Okay, I'm gonna do a switch here. And forgive me, guys, don't get mad at me when I do this. Number 5 for me is Edges of Twilight. Released in, thank you again with the prop. He is so wonderful for that. Edges of Twilight came out in 95 on EMI and Chrysalis. It was supposed to be, from what I've read, the breakout album. Like, it was recorded in LA. I think it was produced by. The thing with this band is all of their albums they were very insular in terms of the work they did. It was all done with in-house, right? Like Jeff Martin recorded and produced all of the albums, right? Because whether he was a control freak, I don't believe that, but he thought, I guess, he could bring out the best sound, right, for the band. But this album was produced by him, and I think it was Ed Stasian, I believe is his name. I think it's just a fantastic mix of influences of Middle Eastern influences. The lead off single was Fire in the Head, which just like blew me away. The singles were Fire in the Head, The Bazaar, Sister Awake, and other tracks that to take note of are, the entire album is good, but the tracks that really hit me were Walk With Me and Anna. It's a lengthy album. It's over an hour long. It's just a really good album. And to note, Sister Awake, that one track, the instrumentation on that one track, what this band loves to do is to build layers and layers of textures and sounds and melodies. They use instruments like the sarod, the sitar, goblet drums on that one track. That one track has like 58 recorded tracks. They had to use 3 recording machines all lined up in order to support all those tracks to record that. So in order to mix that that one song, you can imagine how long it would have taken to do, right? And it was just a fantastic album at the time. And I got a note, like there was no, in my opinion, nobody sounded like the Tea Party in Canadian music at that time. There was nothing like that coming out. And there are a bunch of good Canadian bands out there. And again, like you were saying in your review of the new album, why this band did not break in the US, I have no bloody idea. I really don't.
Yeah, for a power trio, man, it's big sound, kind of like an orchestra, right? It's crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
3 guys.
Exactly. So yeah, that's my number 5. Again, it doesn't mean I don't like it any less than any of the other ones on the list. But.
Yep. All right, Martin.
All right, my number 5, I went with Transmission. It's got a industrial album cover. It's got an industrial title, and I think there's a lot less electronics on here than we kind of are fooled into thinking, because it gradually goes away as it goes on. Like the first one, it hits you immediately. And so the first song, it's definitely, you're going to feel like there is a lot of that sort of thing. Army Ants has like the distorted vocal on it. And then you get an actual kind of hip hop beat behind Psychopomp. But then it kind of feels like there's less and less of it as the album goes on. So, but that was the debate. That was the big talk in the press at the time about this. Oh my God, have they gone industrial? Have they gone trendy? Are they going to go down this route? Because Wasp did it, Danzig did it. Everybody was kind of doing it, right? White Zombie was big, Nine Inch Nails, Ministry.
9 Inch Nails, yeah.
Yeah. So there was a bit of a problem with that. I suppose, worrying, like Rick said so eloquently, that we're going to lose our band. We're going to lose this great band. But it's also a really heavy album, which is kind of cool. It is quite relentless, and it's got a lot of emotion to it. And later on, it's got more of like Pulse's got the heavy lumbering Zeppelin thing to it. Emerald's a mellow one on there, but Babylon, super aggressive, kind of heavy sound. So it's a little more vicious and maybe a little more industrial than like when you get into the album later. So I don't think they went kind of too far with it. And as Pete says, they do it well. Yes. These guys would fit my definition of smarty pants metal. Guys that just basically do everything right. You almost get mad at them at times how talented they are. And so they go down this road and they do it better than anybody else. So that's my number 5.
Well said.
Yep.
It's interesting when you talk about the Zeppelin comparison, because Jim, he did study a lot of Jimmy Page tuning and and all that stuff. But at the time, as they were making their splash in Canada, Jimmy Page and Robert Plant put out the No Quarter, inviting the Egyptian pharaohs in 1994. And I go see him on tour several times in 1995. And I was seeing a Tea Party show not long from that. It was almost like a similar vibe. So it's kind of interesting thinking that they went further in that rabbit hole of Middle Eastern than Zeppelin really did. Because Zeppelin only had a handful of songs because they're so brilliant, writing so many different.
And Jeff worked with Jimmy Page when he went to Ireland, right?
That's right. And there's a picture of Jeff Burrows with Jimmy Page on Facebook that I saw. So I know they had, break bread sometime together and, catch up. But anyway, that's interesting to put that analogy in there. My next one, again, I love this record. It's fantastic. When we get to this part of the category, discography, they're almost like perfect album. We've been talking about 4s, 4.5. I'm getting really leaning to the 5 here around this period because it's that well thought out. And Smarty Pants rock and roll for sure. 7, the 7 Circles is my next one. And I like this because of not only the artwork, seems like mysterious, because there's a certain vibe about Jeff Martin. He gives you he's clever, but he gives you that mystic, kind of like Jimmy Page had. Did he dabble with magic or whatever? He lets you think, the less he gives you the information, the more it leaves you the imagination. And so when they have albums like this, and you wonder what he does on his spare time with all these, special graphs of some unknown thing you don't quite understand what these symbols mean. It might be just for the entertainment value, but to me, it's just, it supports the music. The art that he supports. And even when you go to the concerts and they have the backdrop, it suits the music and it really fits the vibe that you're getting here. So this album, we mentioned quite a few good songs here already. Writing on the Wall, again, another great CD opener, which they're famous for, as we all been mentioning. Stargazer, One Step Closer Away. I love these songs. Overhead, Come Back Again. They're all great. This album had to sit there, but I thought this was a well put together record in the way the track and order had me locked in from the moment that first song came in right to the end. And it's like you felt like you experienced the concert of the Tea Party all in one album. It felt like a show. When I start to get to these last part of these discography, it feels like the complete experience in one CD. So it's pretty cool. So that's my
mine as well. 7 Circles. Dig it. Everything you guys have already said. Writings on the Wall is a killer song. Probably another top 10 Tea Party song for me. I love Stargazer. No relation to Rainbow, right? Big riffs, nice use of Mellotron. Oceans is a great kind of like emotional pop song because they could do that really well too. I love Luxury and Overload. Great, like 1-2 punch, like right in the middle of the album. And I really hear that kind of Chris Cornell Soundgarden thing on those two tracks. Coming Back Again has those Middle Eastern vibes. The Watcher is great. The title track's got like prog and blues. Really, really strong album. Again, it's almost a shame that this is ranking where it's at because I think it's tremendous. But that just, again, reiterates the strength of this catalog. So back to Armando.
Okay. And I wanted to apologize just now for interrupting you, Rick. But yeah, moving on. Number 4 for me is the Interzone Mantras from 2001. Again, I had no idea that this was going to be coming out, and fantastic album cover. I saw the commercial for it, and I was like, "Oh, okay, I'm excited for it." If you're lucky to get an early pressing of that, like copy of that disc, you'll get that.
I bought it used. I was pretty happy to get that one. I was like, "Oh, cool!" Right?
I know it is cool. It is cool. Okay, came out in 2001 again through EMI. Most of these albums came out through EMI. And the one thing they had to say quickly about EMI was they left them alone to do whatever the hell they wanted to do in the studio. They had no constraints on them. You got to be more this, more that. You got to, as they said in another interview, because they put out a compilation called Tangents, right, which is the greatest hits. And Jeff Martin said in an interview, which it's kind of weird because we only had the one hit. Okay, like, the greatest hit, Heaven Coming Down, right? So, but it's the songs that people know mostly. But getting back to the Interzone Mantras, the lead-off track, Lullaby, lead-off single from the album is Lullaby. And it starts off with like a music box that's distorted, like it's out of tune, right? And then it goes into the guitar intro, and it's very gothic sounding, very like, come into my house, come in to see what I got for you, and you're not gonna like it, right? But by the time you realize you're not gonna like it, it's too late. You're already sucked into it, right? And it's about drug addiction and what's gonna happen with that, and the pitfalls of it. Angels is another track, which was the second single. Second or third single, Soul Breaking was a fantastic, melodic, emotional track for me. What other tracks here? Requiem is a fantastic, just symphonic mixing of just a fantastic emotional piece of music. Mantra at the very end is an 8-minute monster of a track, like the arrangement on it and the different sections and the drumming on it. Like, you have to see Jeff Burrows on the drums during a concert. He is a monster on that kit. He's all over the place. He's in control, but he's all over the place. And that's fantastic. I mean, it's just worth going to see him play. Nothing to take away from Jeff Martin or Stuart Chatwood, but it's just fantastic.
And on that album, he played most of those songs on one take. They only had 20 days to record
this album, I think, was... you're right, Rick. This album, I think it was recorded at Metalworks Studio, which is owned by Gilmore, again, from Triumph. It's their studio. I think the album was recorded, between 3 to 4 weeks, like the basic tracks, right? And what happened was they got themselves into a workspace before recording, and they just played, like they faced one another in in that workspace, and they just played and jammed and got the songs together. So when they went in to do the album, it was like boom, 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 done. Everything was like done pretty quickly. And I gotta say, it's I think it's the first album that they had outside musicians come in, because everything else was, again, insular. They all relied on themselves to do all of the music, whatever instrument it was. And it's a more guitar-driven album. Like Dust to Gold is another fantastic, piece of work. So yeah, it's just a great album. Yeah, I think it's
It was certified gold too. It was the first gold instead of platinum from all the momentum that they had.
yeah.
Good stuff. Yep.
So that's my number 4.
All right, Martin.
Cool. All right, my number 4 is The Ocean at the End. Love this album to death. I mean, to me, it sounds a little bit more like we've got the LOC, which is kind of their Song Remains the Same. We've got the 11th Hour, which is sort of their dancing days. So they're doing some other Zeppelin-y things here. It's not just the super heavy heroic riffs or the the mandolin and acoustic guitar kind of stuff, right?
Right.
So it's kind of cool. There's a lot of neat experiments on this one. The maker is almost like a world music Peter Gabriel sort of thing on this one. The Cast Corridor is like one of the most stadium rock sort of sounding songs they have, but I mean, everything these guys do sounds epic and heroic, and there's so much work put into it, and the sounds they come up with. I mean, they're obviously, huge stereo files, right? So I think I think this is just a really inspired comeback record with a lot of great ideas and a lot of songs. You've got Brazil is an interesting one. Not crazy about the Brazil chorus, but the rest of it I really like. And The Ocean at the End, proggy, 8 minutes long. So yeah, to me, I like this one just a little more than Blood Moon Rising in terms of it just seems like I feel like there's a pent up element of ideas coming into this one. There's an excitement to it. So that's my number 4.
It's interesting you mentioned also the Zeppelin other flavors that they brought out on this record. But even the writing at the back of the record got that Zeppelin kind of writing, like in the Song Remains the Same.
Yeah.
The way the font. Okay, my next one is it's gonna be the first. Well, the first we call the first record for this ranking. This was signed into to Rick You Rock from Jeff. This is a great record, and I put this high up there, even though I probably had the most hours on this, being that it's the main one that you got since 1993, and I've been following the band probably since 1990 when they were kicking around before they put out this record in 91. But this album is it's just so personal. It's part of my soundtrack of my youth, right? And so this is high ranking only just because of that sentimental value, I guess you could say. But all the songs are powerful, right? This is really what sums up the following for them. And just like Armando said, it was that psychedelic video that I saw that was like, wow, what is that? And so The River, Midsummer Day, Save Me, Sun Going Down, all these great tunes. It give me everything that I love about my Zeppelin at the time. Zeppelin was in orbit. There was no Page and Plant yet. And so I had an appetite for something like that. And I loved the Jim Morrison and the Doors. And it was interesting because the Doors movie was famous in that period of time, So there's a lot of trendy things that happened that set the planet lined up for them to make it in our country anyway. So this is a near dear album, and I was really proud to see it was produced by Jeff Martin. One of our heroes. This is his major album, and he produced it. That you don't get that kind of autonomy, especially in that period of the 90s, where it's very corporate. And so that was another thing. And I love the artwork. I think that has speak volumes about the imagination of the band. Even when they, this was starting a new thing with CD, putting, colors on the CD itself. They did that from the beginning on. So, I mean, it's not an elaborate package, but back then that was a big deal for me. And so, that's going to be my next one.
Ooh, nice.
My number 4, I'm going to go with the most recent one, Blood Moon Rising. I've been listening to this a ton lately, and I think that's, probably has impacted where it sits in my ranking here. It's funny. I originally thought, because I've been listening to it so much lately, that it might even rank higher. But then as I really sat down and started putting this, I'm like, all right, I really dig it. I think it's really great. It's maybe not quite the pinnacle of what they've done, but it's really a lot of fun. I love the big, heavy rock of Black River. Again, opening track. Boom, right? Way Down is a really cool blues rock track. can kind of do without the harmonica, but I'm sure nobody's surprised to hear that. Sun Shower, I really like a lot. So Careless has great hooks, great melodies. Our Love is another kind of lush psychedelic pop song. Really dig that a lot. Whole of My Heart, good rocker. Shelter is another slice of like, psychedelic rock, which I really dig a lot. Summertime, absolutely gorgeous. Love the kind of trippy 60s psychedelic nature of that song. I love Beautiful, or The Beautiful. I think that's another really great vehicle for him to show the emotional side to his voice. Honestly, I think the least favorite songs for me on this album are the title track and the cover of Zeppelin's Out on the Tiles. I love that song, but to me, I'm having a hard time getting past like the Jim Morrison style vocals singing a Zeppelin track. It just kind of doesn't really work for me. It's kind of fun, but I would have rather heard another original song from him. But otherwise, I think it's a great album. It sounds good. I agree with Martin though. There is a kind of separation of styles on this album, as opposed to on most of their other albums where you get this weird blending of all these elements on every track. Here it's kind of like, all right, you get the bluesy hard rock, you get the standard Zeppelin thing, you get the ballad, you get the psych song. So I get it, and I think that makes this one sound a little bit different than some of the other ones, but I'm getting a lot of mileage out of it. So that's my number 4.
Nice.
And the reason for that, though, my friends, is because it's 2 EPs put together.
Yeah, put together. Yeah,
it was the Black River EP, which is good in the 5 dynamic songs in the running order they did. And then Sun Shower was another EP that they put out, which has all that poppy stuff of the summertime and all. And then they try to sandwich those 2 together in a cohesive piece, throwing in a couple bonus tracks for good measures, making it, in case you do have the 2 EPs, you might want to get this because you got some bonus tracks. But at least it was done in 2 separate countries. They're 2 different EPs. So, but they did a pretty good job making it sound like it belonged in an album. But you're right, it doesn't have like the start to finish feeling like it is the album. That's why, exactly.
Don't forget they covered Joy Division Isolation recently as well, and the Smiths Every Day Is Like Sunday, right? Yeah. And they did amazing versions of that as well. So that's right, all over the place during isolation, more or less, right?
Yeah, gotta keep busy. All right, Armando.
Sorry, just to note that with Blood Moon Rising, because it's only available in Europe, they did a deal with Inside Out Inside Out did a deal for distribution that the album is only in Europe.
Inside Out, Sony Music,
Yeah, you cannot get it in Canada, and that ticked off a lot of people in the record stores. Like, we can't get it. We have to order it. So, but that's the way it is, right? Moving on. Number 3, is it right? Number 3?
I think so, okay.
Yeah. Number 3 for me is Triptych. 99, released again through EMI. Again, I know this was coming out. Like, I always usually hear about, you usually hear on the radio, whatever new stuff coming out, but this was a big surprise for me. A lighter album in terms of the music, in terms of the arrangements, in terms of like everything that Transmission wasn't, like it's a different sound. It rocks in places, and there's some ballads. I mean, like the lead off single Heaven's Coming Down. It was, I think, the only number 1 hit in Canada, or like chart topping single in Canada, which I found really surprising, which is really good. You have the in terms of the singles, you have The Messenger, which was a Daniel Lanois cover. You have These Living Arms and Taking Me Away, which they're both very emotional songs, very textured, very sort of atmospheric, like sort of dreamlike type of arrangements and stuff, which are great. Halcyon Days just blows you right through the back door. It hits you so hard. I mean, it starts off slow with the intro, but then it just kicks you in the gut, and it's fantastic, very elaborate. It's and it ends with almost like an acoustic track, Gone, which is you just have the guitar, acoustic guitar, and the cello use. Could be more on that. I have to double check that. But overall, it's a very, very good album. Very, again, for me, very cohesive album. Like it start, middle, and an end. And it's just very melodic. And again, very upbeat album. They called it because when they were doing promo for for Transmission, they were already working on songs for Triptych. Because that's one thing about this band. They were very prolific. They kept going. Like, boom, they did an album a tour. Like in the 70s, when you would have like a band do an album a tour a year, they would do an album 1 year, do a tour, and then do another, like every other year. So they were still very prolific in the 90s, as you said in the review. So I just think it's a good album. It's a very good album. Very, very accessible, as opposed to Transmission, was more dark. It was a more darker album, more dense, which I loved, right? But more on that later. So.
All right, Martin, where number?
Okay, my number 3 is The Edges of Twilight. This was my favorite Tea Party album for 25 years up until yesterday morning when it got toppled by 2 more. So yes, momentous times, violent times in my ranking of the Tea Party albums right now. So this is where it all came together for me, and I realized these guys were geniuses, and I felt guilty that I like was snobby about them, and I thought it was a gimmick before. Because Fire in the Head. I mean, how can you deny how massively and a cult talisman that is almost of a crazy, heavy, very cool, dark, kind of a new thing. The Bizarre is amazing on here as well. The Badger, where you get the kind of the black countryside or whatever, black country sort of Zeppelin sound on that. Turn the Lamp Down Low, wasn't that crazy about it. I don't really want to hear Tea Party doing anything close to rote blues because they do so many other amazing things great. But Shadows on the Mountain, I really like a lot. Armando, you mentioned the production. Ed Stasium production on here is incredible. So again, this was greatly compared to Page Plant around the time, right? Because there was so much hubbub about Page Plant, but and Sister Awake is an absolute masterpiece as well. So to me, this is where it really all comes together, where you feel like it's almost like you're feeling like they're serious about doing what they were doing before. It's like, is this kind of jokey? Maybe it's a little gimmicky. It's kind of a little weird. And it's like, no, they mean it. And they really come into their own and do an amazing, amazing job. So this is the one for me that has the most excitement around it for that reason. And this is when it's like, oh my God, I was wrong about the Tea Party. They are absolute geniuses. So yeah, love this album to death.
Right.
Number 3.
So mine is going to be, whoops.
That's a good one too.
Yeah, Frank Marino.
Talk about a great, like, I'm surprised how high it did go up on the ranking, being it's a brand new album. I only have it like a few months now. And, but it is so catchy, and they did it so more accessible. It's even if you're not a Tea Party fan type of their past work, this was a good introduction for the band, for people to get a small dose of what this band could be. But I agree that it doesn't have all the artistic flavors that they do in previous albums, but I told them that they can rock. I think this helped them for live material. This is going to be great stuff to throw in to, after we put everybody in a trance, and they pick it up and, make them happy with Summertime, and let's, have them at the edge of the seat with some rock and stuff. I think this record is fantastic. I'm so glad that, they proved that they're still relevant. They still got something to offer. They still brings a lot of stuff to the table. Black River gets played a lot in our river, from Detroit and Windsor and maybe Toronto and maybe London, Ontario. Almost everywhere I hear that song being played on the radio or on satellite radio for that matter. So it's getting some airplay. That's great. So it was great. It's a long-awaited album for me. I wanted to see them, and they put out, and I wasn't disappointed. Again, this wasn't available in Canada right away because they just focused on the EP, and I had to actually order this from the U.S. to get it. My Canadian band, I got to get it from the U.S. But I'm glad they're in, with Inside and Out. That's a good label for them to get a splash worldwide. I think that might be a good thing for them. They deserve something like that. What can we say about that hasn't been said already? I mean, the all the tunes are good, way down. I love that. So Careless is great. All these songs are awesome, and I did think they give you what you expect from the Tea Party at this point in time. They did bring the harmonica player, Jamie Ashforth, played very well, just spots here and there. Overall, though, I think this album really climbing up. Who knows how far it will get after having this for another year. And this is the album that has to get signed, the only one that doesn't got their signature at this moment. That'll be corrected in June when I see it.
Nice.
And you had to get yours from the US. I had to get mine from the UK. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Nobody can get it from home, right? It's like crazy.
Same here.
Well, I'm gonna match up with Martin here on my number 3, Edges of Twilight from '95. Yeah, this is really good. I struggled with. I wanted to even put this higher. It's fantastic. I mean, Fire in the Head is another one of my favorite songs from these guys. What a killer opener. I love the big metallic riffs. I like that kind of cashmere feel, which they inject, those kind of cool keyboards and Mellotron and stuff on a lot of their tracks. Just great. Correspondences, absolutely intoxicating. I love the Badger. The Silence is a great song. Drawing Down the Moon and Walk With Me is terrific. I love the mix of like really kind of quirky folk and big bombastic heavy rock. It's another one of my favorites on the album. A lot of variety on here. It's a great sounding album, well produced, a lot of textures, spectacular. I would say if you're someone who's never listened to this band before and you're asking, where do I start with this band? You know what? This would probably be a great place to start, I think, because it kind of has a little bit of everything on it. So back to Armando, number 2.
All right. Number 2. Let's see if I can do this properly without screwing up here. I have a prop.
Nice.
Okay. I actually have a prop, ladies and gentlemen, for once.
There you go. All right. Propzilla, here he comes.
There you go. Blood Moon Rising. Yeah. I switched it. It was my number 5. It's now my number 2. I was listening to it. After your review, I went back and listened to it some more. This is the one I've been listening to more lately. Again, just a fantastic, hard driving album. Hits you right in the gut, right from the beginning, right from the first track. There's not much more that can be said. Again, it's a compilation of 2 APs, the Black River and the Sun Shower EP that were released. And I know a lot of people off the record, well, on the record now, but that are, just a side note, that are ticked off because they want an actual Tea Party album. And I think one of the Tea Party, I don't know who it was on their Facebook, they said, we're not going to release an album, a CD, because people don't buy CDs anymore. Well, I do, and I'm looking at you in the camera, like I still buy CDs. And if I know that an album is coming out, I will go and get it. I will order it or I will go and get it. I'm not a fan of the EPs for some reason. I like a full album. So that's my rant. But the album itself, again, it's a much more, I don't hear the Middle Eastern influence as much as I do on the other ones. Okay. They have them in some spots, but not all the way through, which is okay. I mean, there's a variety here. The tracks of note for me are Black River, Hole in My Heart, which I think is the second single, and it features another vocalist, Todd Kearns, from a Canadian band, Age of Electric, which they were good, they were big in Canada, but not really. I don't think they hit the US market. And if you guys, please go check out Age of Electric. They're fantastic. Hole in My Heart is very just hits you right in the gut in terms of the arrangement, the guitar solo that comes out in the middle of the track, right in the center of it. Again, Black River is a good one. The Beautiful ones, the Beautiful, sorry. I can't even read my own handwriting. The Beautiful is a fantastic atmospheric track for me, just very relaxed. And again, atmospheric is the only way I can describe it without sounding too corny. They do a good, for me, they do a good version of Out on the Tiles. These guys have always been Zeppelin fans. Like, I mean, you can't get away from that. They can't get away from that. I mean, they try, but they're always compared unfairly to, you know, they're trying to copy Led Zeppelin. They're not. They're just using the musical influences, right? So there's that track.
So after all these years, was that their first Zeppelin cover? Did they do it on any other like?
No, they didn't on record. I'm not. Don't quote me on this, but I believe so.
No, they played them Zeppelin live.
Well, they played it live, but they haven't recorded them, right?
Live, but never recorded anything before. I don't know if they contribute to a Zeppelin tribute album. They might have. Could do a band that did that in the '90s, but I know they would have done Kashmir. They have performed "Bring It On Home," the blues, and all that, the whole thing. Yeah, and they also performed Roadhouse Blues, obviously, because I played harmonica with them on that. But so they did play live Zeppelin. In fact, Jeff Martin have done acoustic tours where he would showcase some of his solo albums in Tea Party, but he also done concerts where it says Songs of Led Zeppelin.
Oh,
and
okay,
he would
gotcha.
just play,
he did do that.
and, you know, use the tuning like DAGAB with DADGAG, whatever, tuning and explain all the Zeppelin songs that came out of that tuning, and then how the Tea Party would come songs with that kind of tuning. It's more of a history lesson at the same time of, you know, entertaining you. He gives you where some of these songs are crafted, where it came out of, some of the, you know, the origin of the songs.
Gotcha. Cool.
Yeah, and just to finish, for me, like you said, this album for me is more immediate. Like it hits you right away. Like it brings you in. Maybe the fact that for some it doesn't sound cohesive is the fact that maybe they know that it's the two EPs put together, right? Like it's, you know what I mean? So that kind of like maybe taints it a little bit, but for some people, but I still like it. I still think it's great.
Awesome.
Cool. All right, the top two. Here we go.
Okay, my number 2 is Seven Circles. So I'm not really sure why I like this one the most. I love this middle period of the band. I think I like it the most because, yeah, I don't know why mine's black.
Yeah, that's cool. That's the first time I'm seeing that.
I have that copy, Martin. That's the black. Yeah, I have that copy of it.
Huh, interesting.
That's
yeah.
So on different labels, maybe.
Now I gotta go buy a black one.
Yeah.
I gotta have more. Collect them all, right?
The back is like that, white. A lot of shine on it. But I find this one to be really heavy, and I find it to be almost like the furthest away from all the influences, yet it is quite heavy, which is really cool. Writings on the wall. I'm not crazy about, Pete and I were talking about this yesterday by Messenger, but I'm not crazy about lumbering blues, circular rumbling blues riffs. So that one kind of rubs me a little bit the wrong way, but after that, I love Stargazer, kind of a poppy heavy one. Luxuria is really killer heavy metal on that one. The Watcher's kind of a smeary, slow, and that kind of brings out the messianic Jeff Martin quality. Like Rick says, you know, he's just the coolest looking dude, right? He's just such a rock star, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this one has that density of transmission, but it's more of the analog instruments and less of the electronic thing to it. I just find it to be a good, serious, dense, heavy Tea Party album. You know, the Zeppelin stuff is in there with the title track. It's got the Holly McNarland female vocal on "Wishing You Would Stay" is amazing. Empty Glass, again, heavy mixed with acoustic parts in that as well. Yeah, to me, this is just that hallowed period where it doesn't seem like there's much coming in from the outside. It's just like all Tea Party. It's all their personality. So this one, yeah, this is the first one that bumped Edges of Twilight.
Okay.
Back to Rick.
Geez. I lost my cue. So anyway, next is I gotta pick. It's the edges of Twilight, and the reason being is that that was the one that you took a lot more serious. This is actually one of the promo pictures that they had at the time, and I have a poster of that with them signing on that. But anyway, this album, I also got the anniversary special. I bought it for the occasion to the double disc. Shows them all the demos of the at least like 11 demos, and then the BBC live version of some of these tunes, like Sister Awake and Turn the Lamp Down Low, and so forth. This is a fantastic record, and to me it just helped them, like you said, Martin. Took them more serious, that it just wasn't just a one album trying to show you a little hippie trippy kind of album. This is psychedelia. They actually embrace it, but they brought in some world music involved, and then they brought a little more that blues stuff that was you can't talk about African rhythms without talking about blues a little bit. So that was spilled in here a little bit, and that made me why they have that one cover there. But even the titles, Shadow on the Mountainside, the Black Mountainside. There's little hints of things like that that showed that they got that kind of imagination. But anyway, I love the album package, the artwork, the whole, just when you open it up, it's so mysterious, appealing. And interesting, another thing about this album, that Roy Harper, who's something that Led Zeppelin had, always even put a title of a song called Hats Off to Roy Harper on the Led Zeppelin 3 album. He was a special guest and did some singing on this record, on the unwritten track or unlisted track. So that got to be an interesting story that they had in the studio, bringing Roy Harper, who was, even Zeppelin was a fan of them, to even name a song after him. So that was an interesting. And also Jimmy Page have played with Roy Harper in a couple of his solo albums, and especially in the mid 80s. So it's interesting to see that coalition.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool.
Nice.
All right. So the one cool thing about coming to this band late is that, I got all these albums at the same time. So it was interesting to hear Martin tell his story about the debut, about how, where he was at musically at the time. And then this band comes out and it's like, it's kind of gimmicky, whatnot. So for me, I didn't really have any of that because it's all new to me right now. So I really am enjoying Splendor Solace, the debut, or technically their second album, but for this purpose is what we're doing here, the debut. So to me, it's like, all right, I'm kind of digesting and getting used to all these all at the same time. And I really like this a lot. And I don't mind the Zeppelin, this album is really heavily relying on the whole Zeppelin vibe thing, which I'm okay with. I love his vocals on here. I love the big burly Jimmy Page riffs, the Middle Eastern motifs, the big drums. I love the river, Midsummer Day, just lush and beautiful. I love the Doors meets Zeppelin, a certain slant of light. Winter Solstice has some just incredible acoustic guitars, really, really nice. Save Me. I mean, just great stuff on here. Sun Going Down, the majestic song. I think it's a terrific debut. I love the album cover. It's kind of has this like weird, like early 90s independent prog release look to it, sort of, right? I don't know, it reminds me of like something you would have seen from a band from the UK or whatever. But yeah,
or a Blackmore's Night album.
Yeah, that too, Martin.
Blackmore's Night
album. Or
yeah,
a cover of a movie from the Monster Den.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah.
Halloween special there.
Yeah, and they're looking kind of less like those big famous looking rock stars like the other pictures we've been showing, because this is obviously very early on. But yeah,
to me that picture, that artwork looks like the Church heyday. It looks like the old Church album. It looks like a lot like that, the whole Paisley kind of feel.
It's funny that you made it. I love the Church. I worship them. It's just the way.
Yeah, right.
But I dig it. I mean, this is this band in their kind of infancy, and I kind of dig the naivety of the whole thing. And but it's got big riffs, and it's fun to listen to. It's exciting. Maybe not as kind of more intricate and complicated as some of their later stuff, but I don't mind that much. So yeah, that's my number 2. Pretty high.
Nice.
Back to Armando. Here we are. Drum roll, number 1.
And just a little footnote: if you are able to get the Tea Party Live in Australia, live from Australia. They do a version of Sun's Going Down, and it's like an 11-minute, audience participation, you know, um, I guess, tour de force kind of thing. Like it really gets people in, and people are really, into this band, and especially during the show, it's just an amazing show. I was going to send you the DVD and the double live album, but the
Yeah,
DVD,
I have that. We got to share that.
yeah,
Nice.
like, you got to really listen to it. The sound on the album is amazing. All right, drum roll please. Number 1, Transmission from '97. Released on EMI and Atlantic in the US and Atlantic in Japan. Thank you, gentlemen, for the props. Thank you, Martin. Always great to have the support. What to say about this album? Well, I'm going to start with this. Brian May from Queen has said in a couple of interviews that he looks at the recording studio as an empty canvas. You can go in and you can create whatever you want, embellish it here and there, just make whatever you want. And for me, this album, they used this studio like a canvas. They went in and this album is layered, it's textured, it's heavy, it's how can I put this? It's got the techno influences, the industrial influences, but not overly so. Like they created a work of art. They use every inch of the canvas right to the edge, but they didn't overdo it, in my opinion. Right, and this album came out in the date was August of '97. I remember when the commercials were coming out for this album because I had just moved out on my own. It was June 27th of '97. I moved out on my own and I got this album and I listened to it religiously. I blasted this album through my apartment, and I know it pissed people off. Sorry about that.
It's definitely the album to piss your neighbors off with from this catalog. Yeah.
It was bombastic. It was just off the charts. The lead single Temptation was a fantastic way to go to start with. Just a killer single to start with. Army Ants, he comes out so aggressive on the verses, just like white hot, in terms of his vocal ability and delivery. Psychopomp is majestic. It's the drums, the arrangement, it's just a fantastic piece of work. The other singles were Release, Babylon was another, which in terms of industrial, that's the one track that I hear the more industrial stuff on it. But again, they don't overuse it. They don't overplay it, right? They use just enough to get their point across, and then they come out of it again, right? The one track that really hits me emotionally is Emerald. Just, the lyrics, confess what you crave, a life without pain. You kill for the taste, but the hurt still remains. So take from that what you will in terms of the meaning of it. But for me, it was just an emotional song. And it actually would bring me to tears when I hear it. I still cry when I hear it, right? And with this album, for me, did they reinvent rock and roll? No. Did they make music exciting for me? Hell yeah.
It's all about.
It just blew me away. And nobody could touch them at that point. They were white hot, in my opinion. And it was funny because Much Music in Canada, when it was Much Music, and they would play videos and they would have bands come in and do interviews. The Tea Party did they had a show called Intimate and Interactive, where the bands would come in and perform certain songs from the albums, and they would talk with the audience, right? They had an in-house audience, and they're sitting there talking about the album, and their reasons for it, and their mind state of mind at the time. And Jeff Martin got a little pissed off because one of the audience members, like when they were coming in, asked them, like, you know, you cut your hair's short. And he's like, he literally looked at her and said, you know, I'm here to perform for you and talk about the music, and all you're going to talk about is my hair. Like, that's the best you can come up with? Really? Like, moving on. Like, literally, that's what he did. Like, okay, you know, it's just, and again, why this group didn't hit bigger in the US or all in the US is a bloody mystery to me. They had all the elements that was going to work, or that should have worked. But, you know, the US fans missed the boat on that. So, yeah, that's my number one.
Never too late, though.
Never too late.
Yeah.
Never know. But yeah.
All right, Martin, number one. For
Okay,
you.
my number one is the Interzone Mantras. So there's your reticulated cover, and there's your inner cover all signed
Nice.
up. And I have fond memories of this because I got to go to an in studio at Metalworks launch party for this. And it's the only time I got to stand with a drink in hand and talk to Ray Daniels for a long time. That was really cool. But they blasted this album and I love it to death. I love Interzone, the sort of claustrophobic pent up beat on that. It's kind of a heavy song, but it's small at the same time, or compact. It's really, really cool. The Master and Margarita made me go out and buy the Bulgakov or whatever his name, Russian book, and read the whole thing. So like Jeff Martin's teaching me about literature here. I mean, there's a lot of literature references across, because he's just a really cool, thoughtful guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Love Angels, kind of a really good mellow one. There's a lot of good mellow stuff on this one. Apathy, I really love. I love Armando, the way you described Lullaby. That was amazing. You know, but also it's kind of reminds me of like almost like a spooky core sound on that one, which is a little weird. Cathartic's a really good heavy one. Whitewater Siren, Zepp Acoustics, some Mellotron or whatever in there as well. But to me, again, this lines up with my Seven Circles idea of my favorite Tea Party being this middle period where they just seem to there just seems to be more of their own personality in the records in a way, and they've transformed. They've gone one or two or three layers further beyond their influences on either the heavy stuff or the mellow stuff, and an absolute studio tour de force as well, this one. So yeah, this is the most serious, thoughtful, exciting one to me, and that's exactly kind of the way I describe Seven Circles as well. So that's why those are on my 1 and 2.
Gotcha. Cool.
Yeah, it was difficult not to rate, how to start that way. And like I said, because I was watching their progress go, by the time I got to that album, they weren't doing anything new. They were doing a typical Tea Party with everything they'd ever done up to that point. And you're right, it definitely defined them. That album definitely defines them. So when the Seven Circles came out in 2004 and they toured, they would take a break and then they wouldn't come back to the at the ocean at the end to 2014. But they came back in 2011 to do a reunion. And that's when Armando was talking about the other albums. I just want to highlight the two double album that you want to get is first of all, the live album, okay, in Australia. 2 CDs, great set list, guys. Fantastic. A lot of the songs that you guys mentioned today that will highlight on this in this concert. Then you get the DVD with the one show. Even though I think they might have been, I don't know if it's the same recording from thing, because it sounds like different takes. But anyway, if you don't have this, and I know you just got in here really late in the game there, Peter, but you need to complete it because you're a completist like me. You do want to get this if you can.
I'm looking it up as we speak, Rick.
And this live album is great because you ever wondered how they're going to pull this stuff live? It's great to witness. And of course, it gets a chance to show them jam a little bit. And so we were going to talk about this a little bit later. So going to my number one, I'm going to be obviously the last album I was just talking about is this one. This blew my mind and it still holds this special thing. One, I waited a long time. So it was, I waited for this. And And you know, when you think about your heroes, and if they put out an album that was subpar, it could like, you waited long for this, and I was so proud of them when I saw this album come out and hear it. And the first track is probably one of my favorite Tea Party songs of all. I just love it, and just like you said, it had that song means the same, and it had that Achilles last stand. I don't know, a bunch of that bass stuff that Jonesy do, that is definitely, you know, really pumping. It gets me, actually one of those songs that get me motivated to run, or if I'm gonna exercise, I throw on that tune. Or even to start my day, I used to have CDs used to wake me up to get my day going without, you know, relying on caffeine. This is one of those songs. The Black Seed, wonderful. The Maker's wonderful. Black Roses, Brazil, all the 11th Hour, Submission, even the Cast Corridor, they even throw in, hey, hey, what can I do? Throw in a couple of choruses in there that gives you the tip to the hat to the Led Zeppelin. Water's on Fire. I don't know if that's an environmental song, but you guys know me as a tree hugger, environmental activist. I take that title very seriously, and this was music to my ears just sonically, but the lyric hit a chord too, and the ocean at the end. What a epic, you know. This is one I done in the prog sheet where I said this is kind of the proggiest record in my mind, where they did do that little bit of time signature shuffle, and just the fact they brought Ian Anderson to play on there kind of, you know, takes it a little more serious. But I love the fact it was on Anthem, you know, a Rush label, because they're big time Rush fans, and so that's cool. Anyway, I got them to sign that. That's one of my favorite memories, because the after party, they have me come and jam on stage with them, and then I'll watch them perform songs that you would never see them do. Bob Marley, jam, and just stuff, whatever came to them, and that was fun to see. But let me tell you guys, the Tea Party is very sacred to our people in our community, but they do a lot of good work and charity, especially Jeff Burrows, and they're just unfortunately not as popular as they should be worldwide. But I know we started the album ranking the way we do, but you guys can't leave it alone like this without getting this, because yes, there's 4 or 5 songs that's on the first record, but they also got some great gems in here, and it'd be a shame that Pete doesn't hear it, because to me, it's like a full circle. I find that the Blood Moon Rising goes back to the rockin' edge before they get into all the experimental. This album was like that. They were rock and rolling, and it's kind of like a full circle, have the Blood Moon Rising and there. And even the version of the song that you like from the first album, they're different. It's almost like you and I are Zeppelin fans. We go buy the live Zeppelin at BBC just to hear those different versions. But songs like Save Me, it's done differently. It doesn't have all the synth. It has more Jimmy Page violin on a bow kind of sound that he bowed the guitar, and it's really cool. And like in the 20 seconds into it, after the drum loop, he brings the violin to the guitar, and it's not like what we hear in Dazed and Confused first album, but more the song means the same. Remember in the movie when Jimmy Page is climbing up the mountain and he eventually be the hermit with the lantern in his hand? Just before that, the bow is going. I can't do it with my voice, but I do it with my harmonica. Go, you know, just sweating it, really high pitch. He put that in a loop, and then saying "Save Me" on top of it. It sounds so good. I love that version just as much as the album that I've been hearing all my life when I heard it. And they remastered this, so a lot of these songs probably came off the floor, but they gave, you know, the remastered touch. By the way, there are 2 versions here. You get the second disc is the original version, and then Stuart, the bass player, keyboard player, he did the mixing for the remastering edition of the 2021 version. But there's also a cool song in here that's just worth buying it alone, called Good Man Rag. It is a 4-minute, 5-minute tune of brilliant Zeppelin stuff. It's like the best of Present for Your Life and Royal Orleans and Hats on Nowhere kind of jazzy chord meets I don't know, Nobody Fought But Mine, Stormy the Same, a few other Zeppelin kind of samples, The Ocean, all mixed up in this one melting pot, and it's so awesome to listen to. So I love that. And also, because you buy this album, just in case you have the original, like I did, I have a cassette of this, but believe it or not. Bonus track, they had 2 extra tunes that never ever got in the discography that was thrown on here, called Solemn Blues and Pie Dog on the Prowl. But this is worth getting, Pete. You have to do it. I know you very well. You get every Uriah Heep album, you get every Deep Purple album, you're going to get this one. And you won't be disappointed. But yeah, that's my number one, and only because it still just blows me away. They put out one of the greatest records they did. It's not the big creative package as all the other ones are, but the songs are there, and to me, it's gonna be timeless. This is to me the most underrated album they ever put out. It should be the most talked about thing around that time, but unfortunately it didn't. Got off the radar somehow, but the Tea Party, this is it for me.
So Rick, I just ordered the that debut, the reissue. It has it in my Amazon cart, and I also just ordered the Live in Australia CD while you were talking.
You got it all.
I work pretty quickly over here, you know. So
yeah, you do. The one thing I'll tell you about the live CD though, be quick, is the tracks are separated. They're not. It's like not one consistent play. Like they're
okay. I looked at the track list and I was like, sold. Holy cow!
Like they come in and out. No. They come in and out. Whereas the DVD is just one big concert, right? And
gotcha.
Yeah. Yes. That's like
you need to get the DVD. You really do. It's just unreal. There's on YouTube, but the sound is too low. Whoever put it on, it's
and there's a bonus. There's a bonus acoustic set called Live from Cherry Bar where they scaled it down. An unplugged version of Tea Party. It's a bonus thing on here too. As well.
Okay, I gotta check that. I haven't even seen that section. Okay.
All right, so my number one. So when you spend an hour plus every Friday morning with the same person over a span of close to 2 years, I think you get to understand what they like, right? So for those of you who might remember the first episode of Album Homework Assignment, Martin gave me as my assignment the Interzone Mantras, 2001. And Martin knows what I like. I like this a lot. I liked it then. I like it even more now. For me, this was an easy number one. There was no question. It was what was going to come after, which was the question. But this is a big, vibrant, energetic album. You got, Interzone, energetic hard rock, killer riffs, quite catchy. Angels is a great pop song. I love the big burly Led Zeppelinisms of Master and the Margarita. What a fucking cool song. It's just so good. Apathy's got a haunting chorus. I love it. Soul Breaking is just get you right here. I love the mix of pop and metallic riffing on Lullaby. What a great song. Mantra, terrific. Love the big Kashmirisms. And this album reminds me of like all the songs that could have gotten left off of Physical Graffiti. And it's just so good. I love the bluesiness, the hard rockisms, the pop nature of it. There's a little psych vibe, and of course, all those wonderful Middle Eastern flavors. Absolutely incredible. The Interzone Mantras, without a doubt, my number one.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So there you have it, everybody. A epic ranking of the Tea Party. And again, if you're going to ask the question, well, they all had different rankings. Where should I start first? Pick any of them, people.
Yeah.
Pick any of these. Pick any of our number ones, any of our number threes, eights, doesn't really matter. These albums are all really, really terrific. So I want to thank the guys for them revisiting this catalog and ranking them. And for me, I've still been trying to make sense of it all these months. And I think ask me next week, my ranking might change. That's how good these albums are.
Amen.
Yeah. So, Rick, you might as well plug your album again, Rick. Come on, do it.
All right, sure. Thank you very much, guys. If you want to get a copy, go on ricklabonte.com. This morning, I've just, while we're setting up here in the office for a program, Colorblind was played on the radio today in my city. So it's kind of nice to wake up in the morning, hear your own tune come out of the radio. That's kind of cool. But anyway, yeah, Jeff Burrows, Jeff Martin, Stuart Chadwick, they're three guys that are near and dear to my heart. They did a wonderful had a great career so far. They're still going. I'm looking forward to seeing them live in June. And again, it was a privilege and honor to have Jeff Burrows playing on a song called Let It Show on my album on Living It Up and The Gallery of Love. And then on my first album, the title track, On a Mission. How lucky is that? I still pinch myself. I don't want to wake up, because if I am dreaming, I don't want to wake up. I hope to get them again. And but I look forward to seeing those guys play. And I play with Jeff on in May. We're doing another 24-hour drum marathon, and he had me coming on Friday night to perform with them. So that'd be great.
Awesome, cool. And Martin, you got some books in stock ready to ship, right?
Yeah. MartinPopoff.com for all the books. And the latest one is Dream Evil, Dio in the 80s, which is selling pretty good. And then, of course, the UFO visual biography, the Judas Priest visual biography. So there's that. There's the podcast, History in 5 Songs with Martin Popoff. And there's our YouTube channel, The Contrarians.
That's right. Yeah. Right. And in case you guys missed it, you can see myself, Rick, and Armando on a pretty fun episode of In the Prog Seat that aired this past Tuesday. So please check that out, where we talk about the progginess of albums that many people don't consider prog, and namely the Tommy by the Who, as well as what was the other album?
Queen 2.
Queen 2, that's right. Jeez, I got the olds, man. I got either that or I got too much going on. And before we go, Martin, if you and I would put on our modeling caps here, go to the link below and you can get these cool Sea of Tranquility shirts, right? Amongst many, many others. This Hudson Valley Squares, that's the Great Dragonfly shirt. You got the whale shirt, and Rick's got all of them there. Look at that. So lots of cool stuff available at the link below. We got the Ko-Fi link below, the link to our website, seatranquility.org, all sorts of good stuff. So thanks for watching, everybody. And for Armando Venditti, Martin Popoff, and Rick LaBonte, go check out the Tea Party if you haven't already. I am Pete Pardo. Have a good rest of the weekend, everybody. But stay tuned, because we got the UK connection coming up in just a little while. So tune in for that. Bye-bye.